We are without John today. He saw Fulham lose and ducked the test. What an absolute melt. So instead I got someone else whose team lost in the FA Cup yesterday.
Oh, man.
Dougie Critchley, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be back in the slightly rearranged studio.
Yeah. What do you think?
I like it. I like it a lot. It feels very relaxed. I like
Yeah.
the memorabilia. Decorated it very well. A nice Fiorentina shirt there as well. But yeah, I'm in a bit of a... Well, I was in a bit of a stinking mood. I did that quite, I think, apt thing where if your side gets embarrassed, just log off Twitter immediately.
Yeah.
Send a tweet, compliment the other team and get out of there.
You have to acknowledge it, otherwise people accuse you of being a sore loser.
For sure. And I didn't want my mentions just be at Dougie for the next hour. So yeah, fair play to Port Vale. It was a horrible game, but they deserved to win.
Did you rotate a lot?
No, not really.
I
don't know whether you saw the pitch, and look, the pitch was the same for both teams, but it was like a ploughed field back there.
It has been raining.
It was, yeah. I don't know how wet it's been in Stoke recently, but yeah, Port Vale's pitch was not in a good condition. But yeah, we just didn't really turn up, didn't really create very much. Our sort of rotation forwards, but who still play regularly in the Premier League, you know, Talby, Angulo was probably our best player, but Mayenda wasn't really at it. It's just a really bleak afternoon, especially against the side bottom of League One at the moment. It was a really good opportunity.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I said to you off air that I feel like you losing, even though it was against the worst team, it's not as bad as Fulham losing. And I'm not just saying that's why I'm John up, because Sunderland have had a good season. Sunderland, you know,
But so have Fulham, to be fair.
Yeah, but your season, I mean, touch wood, your season is unlikely to end badly. Fulham could, in theory, finish like 14th, and then all of a sudden they're like, what was the point?
They also have, you know, having been in the Premier League for so much longer than us as well, that trophy hoodoo, hence the name of the podcast here as well.
Yeah, the Nearly Men.
Of course.
Fulham can't win a trophy, otherwise the whole podcast...
Well, exactly, will fall apart, yeah. Yeah, because you'd already won one before you'd started it,
Yeah,
hadn't
we
you?
had, yeah.
That was a little bit unfortunate, but obviously you wouldn't change it. But yeah, no, you're right. We're on 40 points now. Never expected to be this comfortable at sort of mid-March time. But it just felt like such a good opportunity to get back to Wembley, where we had a terrible record for so long, like honestly 25 years of just constant defeats, and now have this really impressive record, albeit in the Championship, in League One, in the Checkatrade Trophy. So it's a missed opportunity, but hey-ho.
Who do you think is going to go and win the Cup?
I mean, there's still big sides left in it, isn't it? It feels like one of those really boring years where Man City might win it, but I'd hope actually that a side like Liverpool, given the amount of stick that they've taken at points this season, some of it deserved, some of it undeserved, and I do think a lot of the criticism hasn't really taken into account that this squad is still dealing with the loss of a teammate, etc., in Diogo Jota and the effects that would have on them. It'd be nice for them to win a trophy on the back of a really difficult year, although they do deserve some criticism for the way they've strengthened that squad or not strengthened that squad as well as they could have. So I kind of hope Liverpool do, but I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm kind of up for anyone.
That's quite a nice feeling to be like that in the Cup, I think. There's not really a clear underdog that's actually like realistic to support. Do you know what I mean? Like Fulham, I was rooting for Fulham because I was like, that'd be fun.
Do you do the thing where if you get knocked out by, say, a Port Vale, do you then support Port Vale, or do you then find it quite difficult to?
It depends who we lose to. Like Macclesfield, you might think, oh, you'd go and root for Macclesfield. No,
they were a bit.
Not. They were being really weird
online,
about it. They
yeah.
kept on going on all these podcasts just saying about how we didn't want it, and I was like, hey, like, well done. You don't have to go and slag off our entire squad on every single football podcast. That was annoying. I was delighted when they got knocked out. But if like a good load, like a few years ago, we played Hartlepool and we beat them, but it was like really good vibes in the stadium, and I was like, oh, I actually kind of feel bad that we've beaten you. So who's left in it? So there's Port Vale, Leeds, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea.
Who else is there? Leeds beat Norwich, didn't they? Who else?
It's West Ham, Brentford tonight.
West Ham, Brentford tonight, and then we're missing one other. But there's some big sides in it. There's a nice range, to be fair. I don't know whether Port Vale would, because they're obviously in such danger of dropping into League Two, whether they're just in that kind of do we want it, do we not want it sort of period. But then fair play to them.
Do you think Spurs are in the same category in the Champions League?
Absolutely. I don't think they should care remotely about the Champions League now.
I saw someone say, I think it was on a Sky Sports, the head of their like analysis show they do, they were like, oh, should Spurs rest some players? And people were like, who do you propose plays instead of like the first? There's no one else.
Under 18. No, they can't really rest anyone because no one's available.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think they'll find it particularly difficult in this Champions League tie. Not because Atleti are playing particularly well at the moment. They've actually never lost a Champions League knockout game at home under Simeone. Atleti.
Really?
Earlier today, which is pretty nuts. Given he took over in, I think it was December 2011.
That is mental.
19 home games and a knockout tie. So I don't expect Spurs to go through. But actually, you'd have thought throughout this season, oh, the momentum that they've gathered in the Champions League would help them in the Premier League. It just hasn't at all.
No.
Only winless side, I think, in the entire Premier League in 2026. What was it, 5 consecutive defeats in the Premier League? You saw them last week.
I was there. They were terrible. And before the game, I was convinced we were going to lose because I was like, we're also terrible at the moment and we've got nothing to play for, really. Like, yeah, we're still broad near the bottom, but it wasn't as intense as it is for Spurs. And the way they imploded was just awful. Like, it was so worrying. Because even the Van der Ven red card comes from really poor defending from him and Danzo. And then after that, it was like we didn't really have to try to get through them. Like, I know that Wharton played 2 lovely passes, and I'll take any opportunity to lavish praise on him. But like, you can't give Wharton the ball like 30 yards out, loads of space, and runners in behind. Like, any good defense just shuts it down. In the second half, we just didn't. That was also Munoz got injured, so like we didn't have Munoz, who is our record without him is terrible, and I think he went off before it went to 1-0. So they were 1-0 up at home to Palace. A Palace team who is really fatigued, without Munoz, without Lacroix, and obviously Gehi's gone, but still he's a hole in that squad. And they lost. They were 3-1 down by half time. It was terrible.
It is crazy. It's real doomsday stuff, isn't it? On the Wharton sort of point, do you feel like I feel like he's such a good final third player?
Yeah.
Almost I'd rather he played a little bit further forward at times.
I made a video about this after the game, and I was going to do one on my YouTube as well about him and Anderson and about how
they're quite different.
They are really different, and you're right that Wharton's so good at passing that it feels weird having him so far back, because it's obviously harder to play those passes through the lines and put people through on goal and like create chances. And he's really good at doing it. I think he's our top chance creator this season, albeit he takes some set pieces, but not loads. And he used to be a number 10, through the academy,
really?
Yeah, but he moved further back for whatever reason. The problem is he doesn't score any goals. He's never scored for us.
Never?
No.
In any competition?
In any competition.
Mad
No, he's
stat.
goalless. I'm hoping he's saving it for a really big Conference League final goal. But yeah, he probably could play further forward.
Yeah.
I guess he's not that mobile, but does that really matter?
Yeah, I always just think he's such a good... I always think of Anderson as more of the controller, and Wharton more of like the connector, if that even makes sense. And Wharton is so good at just picking up the ball and immediately looking forward, but won't actually have the sort of passing numbers. And maybe it's just because of the style of play and your sort of philosophy as it is under Glasner. He won't just have the same passing numbers as someone like an Anderson.
Yeah.
But it feels like most Man United fans you talk to, they're always like, it's Anderson or Wharton. And you're like, they're quite different.
Yeah, they could also work together really well.
Absolutely.
Wharton did a good interview. This is the same one. He said he was a number 10 when he was younger, saying that he could have those passing numbers. He could, and he definitely could. And I had a debate with Pythag about this on Zach Jalab's video about Anderson or Wharton. He was saying the same thing. Like, Anderson's touches are way higher and he passes way more pass complete and he gets the ball way deeper. And I was like, yeah, like Wharton can do that higher up the pitch. So there's no reason why he couldn't do it. But like, you can see he's got the skill set to do both. But yeah, I guess he's in an interesting phase of his career where, like, what is he? Because playing in Palace's system is quite weird. It's quite a unique role he has. Like, playing alongside Kamada, you wouldn't really think that works as a two, but it really does. But like, how does that translate if he went to like a Liverpool or an Arsenal or a City or whoever? How does he fit into that team? I don't really know, because I saw Arsenal fans saying they'd love to have Wharton, but I was like, but I guess he'd work next to Rice, but I don't really know what his best position is.
Yeah, I don't know whether you need Zubimendi, Rice, and
definitely
Wharton.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I think that ship might have sailed. And actually, I think you'd want him in the kind of Rice role rather than the Zubimendi role as well. But Liverpool feels like a pretty good option, although Alexis McAllister has finally started playing a little bit better as well. But obviously, most Palace fans, and you won't want him to go anywhere. So.
No, I'm very accepting of players leaving Palace. I know he will leave eventually, but it will be a sad day.
Summer 2027?
Could be this summer.
Do you think?
Depending on how... Well, he's not had the greatest season. And obviously we sold Gehi and Eze, and Mateta is likely to go in the summer too, so maybe they'll try and hold. I don't think his value will go down much. He's got like 4 years on his contract still. So yeah, it depends if he really wants to move. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good time to sell him in some ways if Glasner's going. New manager, give him a big kitty to play with. But Kamada's also going too, so I don't know. I'm just...
Out of contract?
Yeah.
Doesn't want to extend?
No.
That's a shame.
Yeah, so basically every Palace player's leaving. But that's, That's football for
That's
you.
what happens.
This episode is sponsored by Hill Coaching Company.
Feeling stuck, bored, or quietly running on empty? Oliver Hill is a UK-based business coach guiding leaders, founders, and entrepreneurs to intentional happiness, wealth, and legacy.
The work is direct and challenging. Honest conversations exposing the self-sabotage and breaking down the comfort zones that no longer serve you.
The result? Clearer decisions, stronger relationships, genuine happiness, and success that feels enjoyable.
Find out more at hillcoachingcompany.co.uk.
We're going to talk about the Premier League entertainment value.
Yes.
Here's an opening question for you. Has the Premier League been boring this season? Has it been terrible to watch? Is the sport dying in front of our very eyes?
No, I don't think so. But I think it's got to be taken into account that, I'm a Sunderland fan, back in the Premier League for the first time since 2017, comfortable in mid-table. I'm not probably going to hate this season, am I? It was particularly enjoyable for the first 2/3 of it. Sunderland have dropped off a little bit since, but overall, 40 points start of March. Amazing campaign. I think that probably does colour your enjoyment of it.
Definitely.
So we've got this Football Daily WhatsApp group. Used to work for a channel called Football Daily, and there's like 15 of us in this chat, and most of them support top 6 sides. Lots of them have had okay seasons, but not amazing seasons. But it is interesting that a lot of these guys that work in football, and some of their chat in the WhatsApp group is very different to what they say publicly as well. But they've been quite critical of the standard of football, or at least the style. I think it's more the style.
It's
because
style.
you can't really criticise the standard. I think the standard of Premier League football is compared to the rest of Europe has never really been higher, or the gap's never felt this big. Because yes, in that early Pep and Klopp period, the 2017 to sort of 2020 period, that was the best level of football I think we've seen in the Premier League, and we'll probably touch on that. But actually, La Liga wasn't that far off. I think Serie A was probably in a better state than it is now. The Bundesliga, you had Bayern Munich, a very, very good side, still now as well, but Dortmund and Leipzig were more competitive in that period as well. So it feels like the gap now against the rest of Europe is incredibly high, as seen in the Champions League, as seen in the Europa League, and less so in the Conference League this year. I mean, you guys have made it through, but it did take a little bit of a dodgy moment or two.
Yes.
Certainly. So I think overall the standard is still very high, but the style that's taken over isn't as watchable as it has been in previous years. I think that's fair to point out, but I think people writing it off as just a dreadful campaign. Like I literally went through the last 10 seasons, as we'll come on to, and I don't think it's particularly low. We'll come into it, but I think there's a lot of campaigns lower.
I know, and it's. I think honestly, to be frank, a lot of it is sour grapes about Arsenal being top. Like, I don't think if all other things being equal, the entertainment's the same, the style is the same, everyone's playing the same, but City were 4 points clear. I don't think people would be saying the same thing. I think a lot of it is they're annoyed about the fact that the team who is like best at this bad style, in inverted commas, is the one winning the league. But so much of it is just defensive quality. Like, defenders are just a joke now. Like, I was thinking about the Villa-Chelsea game the other day. Obviously, Chelsea win 4-1 away at Villa. And did you see, I think it was the Telegraph did an article, and it was like, this is what football used to be like. It was amazing. But it was like, the thing is, Villa's defence was just open. And like, Premier League attacks are so good now. If you give anyone any space, I'm saying about Adam Wharton 30 yards out against Spurs, he will score from it. Like, everyone is so good at attacking that defenders have got so much better that you just have to kind of find some weird ways of scoring.
100%. I was watching highlights of, it was one of those like clips that goes around on Twitter, and I think it was Euro 2004, and I think it was the Netherlands versus Czech Republic in like a last 16 game. One of those random clips that comes up and you're like, I've got 3 minutes. I'll watch it. And the standard of defending I know it's a Euros where, players don't know each other as well necessarily, or haven't been drilled week in, week out. But it was so open. The pitches were way worse. The goal quality, it was just strikers, it was 2 versus 1s all the time. The standard of defending was so much worse. And the introduction of pressing, particularly in the last 15 years or so, has changed how the whole team works further up the pitch. So now to even get good opportunities, I think is incredibly difficult, which is why people like StatsBomb a few years ago, and there's this guy called Ted Knutson, who influenced quite a lot of the early thinking of Football Daily, was saying that the marginal gains you can get on set pieces are the next frontier. And he was saying this like 10 years ago.
Wow.
And everyone at the time was like, who wants to get that into it? But it was clear that Premier League clubs and clubs around Europe have seen that as the kind of 1-2% that you can get over your rivals. And it's not particularly watchable. everyone said, I have just said it's not particularly watchable. I actually quite enjoy watching the chaos of a corner
Same.
now. People are like, oh, it's not football, but it's just different. It's just a different style.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
It's quite funny. The one game that really sticks out to me it's actually from last season, was Arsenal Man United, where Arsenal won 2-0. I think it was 2-0, and they scored 2 corners, and they were causing United just so many issues from corners. Like, United had no idea how to defend it, and it was quite entertaining to watch because it was just chaos in the box. And I think football fans are always kind of grass is greener. Like, everyone was eulogising about Rory Delap's long throws a year ago, and now long throw-ins are the worst things that ever happened to the Premier League. Like,
For sure.
People just change their mind. Things go in and out of fashion, and it's always whatever the case was 5 years ago is the best thing ever.
Also, Pep was ruining football when
Exactly.
City completed 120 passes, per 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
I just think people always want what they don't have, and there's so much nostalgia.
Yeah, people probably look back on this season. And ultimately, this season, like, we're in March now. The title's not decided. Top 5's not decided. Top 8 is not decided. Relegation's not decided. All the English teams are still in Europe. Like, there is so much to play for. And I think people underestimate how important that is in a season. Like, last season, I mean, we'll get into it last season. To kind of introduce the premise, we're going to rank every season, or the last 10 seasons and this season, so 11 seasons total, on how entertaining they were, how memorable they were, how much we enjoyed them, how fondly look back on them. We've got 4 tiers, if you will. Yawn is the bottom one. Basically, wouldn't relive that season if you're given the choice. Watchable, so all right. Because the thing to remember is, it's still Premier League football. It's never going to be absolutely terrible, despite what people might say now. Thrilling as the second top tier, and then we want to have a number 1, the best season of the last 10 years. Do you want to start way back when and work our way forward?
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense.
Well, a very fitting season to start with. The 2015-16 season, very memorable. So just going to get some top line stats up. Obviously, this was the season that Leicester won the league. Do you think that says anything about the quality of the league in general that year, that Leicester, who had just about stayed out the previous season before, were able to win the whole Premier League?
100%. That it wasn't necessarily the best quality,
No.
for sure. I think Man City, I actually looked earlier, were the top scorers in the league with 71 goals.
With 71?
71. That would not happen.
That's less
today.
than 2 goals a game.
Yeah. And no one
That is
conceded. No
mental.
one conceded fewer than 35, which is where Pep and Liverpool then took the game in the next few years. They were,
is
conceding
insane.
low 20s and scoring high 90s. And Man City, obviously, in that 17-18 season, scored, I think it was 106. So, it wasn't a vintage season in terms of the attack. I think it's one of the best in Premier League history on achievement, though, which does make it, for me, so epic. You could never have, I think Leicester won something like 5 of their final 8 games the previous year, then got into mid-table, having been bottom of the league, and then obviously won the league when no one saw that coming. And did it demean the achievement that Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea weren't particularly good that year? Like, not at all. No one really cares 10 years later.
No, they don't. And rightly so. Like, that was still... This is what I mean when I say about how, like, people hyperfixate on style of play a lot of the time. When I look back at Premier League season, I think, like, what do I remember in terms of who achieved what and what players were good? Like, I feel like that was a real cult season as well of mid-table players. Like, were quite good. There was obviously West Ham under Bilic. They had Payet, who was amazing. I mean, obviously, you're right that your first thought goes to your own team. Like, that was when kind of Zaha and Balassi had probably their best season at Palace, which have gone down as kind of cult heroes. Where would you rank that, do you think?
What was the second tier?
Second top?
Thrilling.
Yeah.
I think it's thrilling.
It's got to go in thrilling.
I think it's pretty epic. I also think seasons are often remembered by how well the best players in the league play. And actually that year, despite none of their teams being very good, I was looking into it earlier again, like Kane, Aguero and Vardy scored 25 or 24 goals. Aguero scored 24, the other two scored 25. Mahrez got 17 goals and 11 assists that year.
Mad.
Absolutely epic. And Ozil got 19 league assists.
Didn't he have like 16 by Christmas or something?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Arsenal fans to this day blame Olivier Giroud for Ozil not having the Premier League goal scoring.
And
Premier League assist record.
And
sorry.
Arsenal not winning the league that year.
Exactly.
There were some great games in that year as well. Like, there was the Arsenal-Leicester at the Emirates when they scored right at the end. Like, I remember that was Rashford's breakout season as well. I think thrilling is good.
I
And
think
again, the
thrilling's
quality
good.
of the league wasn't amazing. Like, I mean, we were 5th at Christmas and we didn't win a game again until April, and we still stayed
It's
up.
not. It is actually quite similar to if Sunderland won the league next year, because
Yes.
we'd be in our second year in the Premier League, sort of probably end up about 14th this year, I would have thought. It's just unthinkable, so it has to be an epic one.
Yeah, it's probably the most memorable, I think. Not maybe not necessarily in terms of quality, but in terms of the actual end result. Okay, the following season, 16-17. I can hit you with some cold, hard numbers here.
Go for it.
Chelsea won the league under Conte, 93 points. Second place, Spurs, 80. We didn't even mention Battle of the Bridge in 15-16 as well. What an unbelievable game that was.
Cool.
Second place for Spurs with 86 points, peak. Hull, Middlesbrough, and of course Sunderland went down that year. 1,064 goals were scored, which is pretty high, actually, looking at some of the numbers from around that year as well. Top scorer was Kane with 29. Top assister, KDB with 18. Pretty impressive. This year, we talk about tactical trends. 16-17 was the year where everyone copied Conte and played 3 at the back. Did Sunderland do that at any point?
Probably. We tried a lot of things.
Well, I remember you beat us 4-0 that season. I think we spoke about that.
That is embarrassing for you.
We were 4-0 down at half-time. It was terrible.
We were so bad.
I look back on this season quite fondly, but I think it's because Palace had quite an exciting end. I mean, maybe you're biased too, but how would you look back on 16-17?
I mean, Sunderland had been asking to be relegated for so long that actually it was just a bit of a sort of final knife in the back, as it were. Yeah, it's done. Although actually the next season was even more miserable than finishing bottom of the Championship.
Of course,
we don't need to get into that.
This is Premier League only.
I think there was something quite charismatic and watchable about Antonio Conte, even though his football probably wasn't as entertaining as like Klopp or Guardiola. He was super watchable on the touchline. He was always, kicking bottles, being very enthusiastic, jumping into the crowd, etc. I really enjoyed Antonio Conte. Spurs were very good at this period as well, and they were an incredibly watchable side. And there's players like Moussa Dembele in that side as well, who were fantastic. I loved Vertonghen and Alderweireld at that time. It's before Kyle Walker moved to Man City, he's somehow been considered really quite a poor player for Spurs and really exploded at Man City. He was like Young Player of the Year at Spurs. He was a phenomenal right back at Spurs as well. The thing that I found interesting when I looked at this table earlier was that 8th place was Southampton. And 8th place Southampton had 46 points.
Really?
46 points for 8th. So there was a top 7, far and
else.
away the best, and then everyone else was pretty turgid. That's why I wouldn't have it as high as some other seasons. For context, Everton are currently 8th this year, and they're on track for 56, so 10 more points than Southampton did that year, which must have been, I think it was Ronald Koeman was probably in charge of Southampton.
Yeah, that would have been like
post-Pochettino.
Lukaku
and Graziano Pele, and but yeah, fair play to Chelsea. I mean, 30 wins out of 38 games is absolutely exceptional. I don't think it's as iconic as the season prior against
definitely not
with Leicester, but still an amazing achievement, and they were a great team and shouldn't be forgotten.
There's something actually quite aesthetic about 16-17. Like, there are some seasons in my head that just looked good. And 16-17 looked good. Everyone had a really nice shirt. I really liked the ball. I remember it just being very sunny a lot. Like, one season I hate, which we won't talk about, is 14-15. In my head, I think about that. It's just grey and
the Mourinho camp.
Everything's just a bit meh. 16-17 was quite fun. I enjoyed it. I think it's good when the best teams are good, and you're right. Like, to have a team of Spurs' quality come second is impressive, but the gap, that's the thing. People overlook how important it is to have just a competitive league. And Chelsea winning that many games, Spurs finishing on 86 points, going the whole season unbeaten at home, like, that ultimately does mean that a lot of the teams were bad. Just, you kind of have to, you have to acknowledge that. I think I'd go watchable.
Yeah, I think that's solid.
For 16-17. I'm going to keep a track of this on here as well.
Yeah, I again looked into the key individuals, and there were some really good goal scorers in this year. Kane got 29 league goals, Lukaku 25. Alexis Sanchez, probably his best season at Arsenal, 24 goals and 10 assists. Pretty impressive stuff. Good. And De Bruyne finished with 18 assists this year as well, which I think was his second year in the Premier League. So there was some great.
Good De Bruyne year.
No. I think, I'll probably touch on it in some other seasons, but De Bruyne had some of his best years when actually City weren't as good, weirdly.
Yeah.
Like in 1920 when Liverpool won the league, he was absolutely phenomenal and actually had some more. I mean, he was still a key part of a lot of their title wins as well, but he often had quite a few injury issues in a lot of their seasons when they were at their absolute best. But yeah, brilliant. Some great individual performances, but I don't think in the scale of some of the quality we have to come that it's right up there.
It was also really highly, it was like hyped a lot, 16-17, wasn't it? Because that's when Pep and Jose were both at Man City and Man United. But again, like, I remember that being really fun, and there being they had a derby quite early in the season, and like Zlatan played and Claudio Bravo had a stinker. But like in reality, they didn't live up to the hype that season. Neither of them really challenged. Well, Man United just didn't challenge for the league, and City didn't really either. They both started well, I think. 17-18 Centurion season. Obviously, Man City 100 points. Second place, Man United 81 points. They finished 19 points behind City. The relegation battle was good. I do remember that. I remember, so Swansea and Stoke both went down with 33. West Brom bottom of the league with 31 points. I mean, you would expect to go down with that probably. That's quite competitive. Southampton got 36. I remember they played each other like really near the end of the season, and I think Gabby Adini scored for Southampton. Anyway, Salah had his big his debut season, 32 goals, broke the goal scoring record that year. KDB 16 assists, fewer goals than the previous season by about 50 odd. This is a good balance of we probably had the best Premier League team ever, possibly, but I can't remember much about 17-18.
I just remember loving that side so much that I think it was the most.
They were so
they were
watchable.
Yeah,
alone.
I've never been wowed to the same extent than I have by a team kind of since, or almost prior in terms of pure quality of a team. You know, David Silva, it would have been Fernandinho and De Bruyne in midfield, Sane, Aguero, Sterling. It was such a good side and so watchable. And actually, the fact that they were they're kind of at the start of those battles with Liverpool. Those 17-18 to 19-20 Liverpool-Man City games were the best most I've ever enjoyed a single Premier League game that my side's not involved in, I would say.
I think that one that year, 17-18 at Anfield, was the 4-3, where Liverpool were like 4-1 up. I think that was one of the best Prem games I've watched as entertainment.
And this year as well, they played each other in the Champions League, and Liverpool actually thrashed them.
Battered them,
I think it ended up 5-1. So it was just the start of this unbelievable rivalry. And yes, no one got particularly close to Man City that year, but you could see that Liverpool were becoming this kind of force as well. So it was almost like a season of anticipation. But as I said, it's the most I've ever enjoyed watching a side. So I would have it quite high.
Really? Would you go thrilling?
It probably wasn't a thrilling campaign overall, but I do think you make a good point about the relegation battle. I think
relegation was good.
There was 6 points between the bottom six, which is quite rare to have as many sides all in touching distance of going down.
Yeah,
maybe watchable.
I would say there was one particular team who will remain nameless who actually broke a record that season because 7 games, no goals, no points, and we stayed up. We finished
at the
11th.
start.
Yeah.
Is this the De Boer?
Frank De Boer.
Wow.
7 games, 0 goals, 0 points, and then we beat Chelsea in the 8th game and we stayed up. We easily stayed up. In fact, we relegated Stoke.
It is crazy how a bad start, a few months later can actually really not count for much. I mean, even this year, did Villa not win? Did Villa lose all of their first 5 league games?
Yeah,
and then they were qualifying. Well, they were competing for the Premier League. In December.
It changes very quickly. So I think watchable.
Nice.
For that.
Let's go watchable.
It was a good era of Prem around this time. Speaking of which, 18-19. Man City win the league with 98 points. Liverpool second, 97 points. Possibly the best Premier League game ever in terms of quality. That 2-1 at the Etihad. I have never been so excited for a Premier game in my life, I don't think. If I was for that. I remember I was really ill and I just watched on the sofa. I was like, oh my God.
Stuff full of strepsils at the time.
Yeah. Mane, Salah and Aubameyang all finished on 22 goals. Quite low scoring for top scorers, I suppose. Hazard 15 assists. The relegation battle wasn't great. Cardiff went down. We actually basically kept right in the Prem. We lost to them home and away and beat Cardiff to send them down. So
fair.
Thanks, Roy Hodgson. I mean, in terms of title race, this is surely the best title race ever.
This was unbelievable, epic. I mean, it was Liverpool's at that stage highest ever Premier League points tally, although they then did beat it.
Did they get 99 the following year, or 98?
They got 99, but they could have easily got 100.
Easy,
they really threw it away at the end. What did they? I think they won 26 of their first 27 games in 2019-20. But in 2018-19, Liverpool lost 1 league game all season. the game you mentioned against Man City.
And they
Aside
basically
from
won
that,
every single other one.
it was unbelievable. They were top until the 3rd of March. They then drew against Everton. They won their final 9 games, but it still wasn't enough. It was just these two sides the Premier League had fully wrestled away control from La Liga, of the best league in the world. Even though the Premier League said it for the previous 6 years, there's points, particularly before Pep arrives, that the Premier League really wasn't the best league in the world, particularly against La Liga. And it was just the best at marketing itself and the most arrogant. And it kind of worked because everyone still believed it. But at this point, the Premier League was, both sides in the Champions League final this year. It was Spurs and Liverpool. Both sides in the Europa League final. It was Chelsea, Arsenal.
Of course, yeah.
So the Premier League was at its best. I think there were some amazing individuals in the Premier League at that particular moment that weren't even anywhere close to being good enough to get into these conversations. Like Hazard's Chelsea were nowhere near. Kane's Spurs had dropped off at this stage. Liverpool and City were just simply untouchable. Yeah. And it was probably my favourite era of the Premier League.
Yeah, it was. I remember that also in terms of entertainment, like to have two teams that good going for the title is one thing, but like the way they were going kind of blow for blow. There was obviously the company goal against Leicester as well. It was one of the most iconic goals ever. I know that Champions League doesn't count in this. It shouldn't count, but like the drama of the Champions League semi-finals as well. I'm pretty sure, was that all in the same week? The company goal.
Back-to-back days.
Like company goal, Liverpool 4, Barcelona.
We were doing streams on Football Daily. I'd never had a feeling like it.
It was, and then obviously the following night, Ajax Spurs. I remember I was out. I was at uni at this point, so it was like sports night. And I was kind of checking it, and I saw it was Ajax were 2-0 up, and I was like, oh, right, game over then. Didn't check my phone. And then I got home at like 2 in the morning, and I was like, and I checked my phone, I was like, oh my God, Spurs won.
I'll sober you up.
I was in bed just watching it like, whoa.
Need to rewatch this tomorrow. I'm not going to remember any of this. Yeah.
I mean, it was mad. And those, it's not just that those teams were like grinding out wins, like they were so good to watch. And you're right about the quality of the league going so far down. Like apart from probably like Arsenal, of like the big teams, everyone was really good that year. Are we calling that the best?
I've got it as my GOAT.
I struggle to see any, like, just off the top of my head, there's maybe one that comes close, I think, but I'll put it in the best for now. I've got one that I might propose as the best as well.
Oh, okay.
We can maybe decide at the end. The yawn category is currently empty, by the way.
Yawn category. Okay.
Just to warn you.
I've got a few yawners coming up.
There's a couple of yawners coming up, I agree. 1920. Null and void.
Yeah.
A bit of a very, very weird season.
Yes. I mean, it got weirder. The following year was fully weird.
Yeah.
This one was just sort of semi-weird because obviously COVID happened in March, but
I can't think of any games that didn't involve Palace after COVID. Do you know what I mean?
What, in the sort of redo?
Restart project,
yeah.
I can't think of any. I can't remember any game I watched.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of ruined Liverpool potentially becoming the best side ever in terms of points tally because they really didn't get it together after the restart. I mean, they'd already won the league at that stage, so it didn't matter too much. But yeah, they only won 6 of their final 11 games, and they actually lost 4-0 to Man City in that period, which kind of felt like it shouldn't take away from their achievement, but it felt like it kind of did, and maybe set up Man City confidence-wise for the next few years, where of course they then won 4 in a row. But yeah, Liverpool were phenomenal, and it shouldn't be taken away from them. Obviously, they'd wanted to win the league for so long at that stage. They'd won the Champions League the previous year in that really dead final against Spurs, but they were the best side in the competition that year, I think it's fair to say as well. Relegation, actually, I remember being really good this year. It was one of the best things. So Aston Villa, Bournemouth and Watford, there was only 1 point between them.
Correct. Watford, 19th with 34.
I think it was the season where Villa had the kind of goal line controversy.
It was,
which was pretty cool. Well, I mean, cool for everyone who's a Villa fan.
Yeah.
But it was so niche. And at that stage, goal line technology, we just thought it could do no wrong. And actually, to be fair,
it broadly can't.
It broadly can't.
Yeah.
It was just a weird thing to happen. But also, I think it was Sheffield United that goal was against. Oh, that game was against. They were, I think, down by that stage anyway.
No, Sheffield United stayed up.
Oh, was it the year was it their first year where they did really well?
Yes.
Yeah, were they like 8th?
Yeah, they were. And again, I think they kind of tailed off as well. COVID definitely ruined this season to an extent. Yeah, Villa had a bit of a great escape. I remember they were right down there, and then we lost to them.
Who was it that sued Villa? I had it in my head.
I think it was Sheffield United, but
why? Because they were already safe.
Yeah, because they went down in 2021 and were like woeful.
I'll have a think.
That's an interesting one. We'll get the producer to check that. But yeah, like realistically, other than Liverpool, this was a pretty, like, Man City were nowhere near it this season by their normal standards. Like, no one, like, there was Ollie at United. It was quite fun, but like even that is a stretch.
It's a hard sell. I think this is pretty close to a yawn. There was no title battle. There was a reasonably good relegation battle, and actually some good individual performances I saw as well. Danny Ings scored 22 league goals this year.
Wow,
for Southampton.
This is where we kind of like the COVID years were weird for that. So we'll get some information about the goal line technology drama.
Bournemouth claimed compensation.
Bournemouth. So Bournemouth did go down.
Okay.
I've got a very weird niche stat about this season.
Oh, go for it. I love a niche stat.
So this was the first season that there was Amazon Prime, Amazon Prime games, and the first time a Premier League game was shown on BBC One live.
What, after the restart?
Yeah. And both fixtures were Palace Bournemouth.
Really?
And Palace won both of them.
Love it.
So if that ever comes up in a quiz, you're welcome. I'm pro us putting this in yawn.
Yeah, we need a few yawners.
I would like to apologise to Liverpool fans because this is absolutely not
nothing against the team. Yeah.
Nothing on this. You did your bit. In fact, you did more than your bit. And you know what? If COVID hadn't happened, you might have been looking at like a 110-point season.
Yeah.
And we'd be saying it's the best ever. But it wasn't. So
it definitely wasn't.
Talking of definitely not the best ever, 2021.
So to pull back the curtain, actually ranked between 11 and 1 all these seasons before we put them in the categories. I didn't know we were doing the categories, and this was my number 11.
Yeah,
like firmly number 11. Really bad season. It was the first year of 4 that Man City won the league in a row. It was played entirely behind closed doors. They won the league with 86 points. Next best were Man United on 74,
which is just criminal.
Not good. Liverpool were third on 69, which is, again, pretty low for a third-place team. That was the year that they had their entire defence pretty much injured for the entire year. They still finished third. West Ham were 6th on 65. There was no relegation battle whatsoever.
No.
Burnley were 17th. There was 11 points between them and Fulham below. And, there were some good individual seasons. Like Salah had a very good year. Kane had a very good year. Bruno Fernandes. But there was almost no redeeming feature of this campaign, except for the fact we were all able to watch so much football because we weren't able to do anything else.
Football. There were some mental games at the start of the year. There was the 7-2 Villa-Liverpool and Man United 6-1 Spurs, or Spurs 6, Man United 1, I should say.
It did feel like because no one was there, no one cared as much. Yeah. And there just felt like
there were some players who were just weirdly good that season.
Yeah.
Like Jesse Lingard was like Iheanacho. Iheanacho's COVID season, people forget about it. He was unreal that year. It's like the whole thing. People spoke about Liverpool's 1920 with an asterisk, but like that season was just bizarre.
Yeah, wasn't good.
I remember my biggest memory from that season is they let fans back into the game. So they did it once around Christmas for some grounds. And then last home game of the season, every ground had like a limited capacity. And we played Arsenal and I was like buzzing for it. First time I've been to Palace all season. I was like, can't wait to watch Eze. Like he was like, I've not seen him in the flesh. He's been probably our bright light that season. That day he ruptured his Achilles. Or was it the day before in training? And they're like, yeah, he's out for like a year. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And thankfully, it didn't affect his career really.
Yeah.
But he was in the provisional squad for Euro 2020.
Was he?
Yeah. So he ruptured his Achilles, went back to the changing room, and had a text and was like, "You're in the provisional squad." And he was like, "Well, no, I've done my Achilles."
That is brutal. Yeah, it was the only thing it was good for was watching like 3 games a day, which is that good for anyone? I don't know, but there was so much football on. I feel like I've never known more about football.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Had
FPL,
less.
I was banging FPL.
Yeah, and I was playing a lot of Football Manager at the time, and then working kind of day and night in my bedroom for Football Daily. It was a really weird, very unsociable time where I was just locked into football for like a year to a degree I've never done before, and I probably won't ever do since.
I think this is a fairly comfortable yawn season.
Yawn.
It's it was a bad couple of years for the Prem. That again, there's no slight on Liverpool and Man City. 21-22. This is the one that I was going to suggest as the best season.
I had it up there as well.
Interim period because we had a really good title race. Man City, Liverpool, 93 and 92 points went to the final day of the season. Relegation also went to the final day of the season. Leeds stayed up. Burnley went down with 35 points. There was obviously City were 2-0 down against Villa on the final day, 1-3-2. This was and fans were allowed back in. I do think that's a big caveat, is that everyone was just buzzing in general.
National mood was better.
The national mood was a lot better. Again, I have to call out my own bias here because this was also Vieira's first year at first and only full season at Palace, and It was our first year of Elise. Obviously, Zaha was in the team. Edouard, Mateta, Gallagher, Anderson and Gahey at the back. And it was like a real exciting new era. So I loved going to Palace that season. Actually, it was my favourite ever Palace game. That wasn't the FA Cup final, basically, was Palace 3, Spurs 0 that season. It was my first game back at Sellers with my dad since COVID. Vieira's first win, we beat Spurs 3-0.
Special times.
Edouard scored twice off the bench. It was...
Odson Edouard.
I literally thought we'd signed Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
We hadn't, unfortunately.
He's actually having a really good year for Lens this year.
He played for us in the Premier League this season. I was watching...
Did he?
I know, at the start of the year. I was
Sounds
watching
like a fever dream.
I was watching the Community Shield highlights the other day, obviously, as every normal person does. And he was just roaming around with a medal. And I was like, what are you doing here?
Watson.
I didn't know you were here. Yeah, he was on the bench that day.
Jokes.
Very fun season, I thought.
Yeah.
Had some really good games.
I think also, invariably, because it's the final thing that happens of any season, obviously, the final day kind of matters and what's at stake on the final day. And Man City going 2-0 down against Villa and then Gundogan scoring twice, it ended up being, and Rodri grabbing a goal. That was a really fun end to the season. What I also remember this year was it was the first of a couple of years, or maybe it was the second of two. Either way, Liverpool could have won a quadruple this year.
Yes.
And actually, they won both cups, both against Chelsea, I believe. They obviously lost the Premier League on the final day. And they lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid, but really outplayed them. It was the Courtois final.
Yeah.
And Vinny Jr. grabs the only goal of the game. And Real Madrid were terrible in that game. So, and people are just kind of used to tease Liverpool for always being on for a quadruple in February and kind of not getting that close. But actually this year, they really nearly did.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, again, like Klopp probably should have ended up with an even bigger trophy cabinet from his time at Liverpool and even more respect than he does get now.
Yeah,
and this was a great season. I enjoyed it. I actually had it 4th on my list.
4th?
Yes.
Damn. I also remember this year it was really exciting beforehand because there were lots of big transfers. Like I think Grealish went to Man City, Lukaku went to Chelsea, Ronaldo went back to Man United, and Sancho went to Man United as well. Or was that the year before? It was...
No, I think it was that year.
There were I remember being like, wow, like all the big teams are really going for it this year. I really enjoyed the season. I think there were lots of fun teams in there. I really enjoyed watching West Ham that year as well. I really liked West Ham around the Mikel Antonio, David Moyes, Thomas Souček. I've spoken about a lot on this podcast. I loved this. I loved this season. I am proposing this goes in the best.
The best?
With 18-19.
Oh, so we're having more than one in the best.
We will decide one of the best at the end.
Okay.
But I loved this season.
Okay,
possibly
nice.
my personal favourite. 4th.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had 18-19, 2015-16 below that in 2. But then I think maybe I got too carried away with Leicester because actually the standard in the league that year, as we've already touched on. And I had 17-18 in this one quite on a par. So that's because I loved the 17-18 Man City side.
Yeah. I mean, they're a historic team. They'll go down in... It's like the years of... like Mourinho's Madrid and Pep's Barca, like them at their best will go down in league history because it's just good teams. 22-23. Also, one thing about 21-22, because this kind of leads into 22-23, I remember Arsenal being quite fun this year when it's like Saka and Smith Rowe were coming through and they were very watchable. And then they kind of came of age the next year. The first Man City-Arsenal title race, which... Did Arsenal bottle that? Possibly. City won the league. They won the treble as well. Relegation battle went down right to the end. This was the year that Palace basically kept Everton up at Goodison Park. We were 2-0 up and lost 3-2. My new manager at the time, that's when I still worked, he was an Evertonian and I just started work like the week of that game. And he was just so anxious all week. And then he was like, I think it was on a Thursday
Good for your career
night.
prospects. You must be like, yeah.
I mean, but he was like really giving it. And I was like, mate, fuck Everton. Because they all ran on the pitch. Vieira, do you remember he like kicked one of their fans?
Vieira kicked a fan?
Yeah, so like Palace were leaving the pitch and all the Everton fans were like swarming pitch aside, like having a go at Palace players. And this Everton fan like pushed Vieira in the back. And Vieira just swung around and just like took his feet out from underneath him. I think he got like a touchline ban for a few games.
Did you swipe your manager's feet on Monday morning?
Yeah. Actually, that was in 21-22, actually. That happened, I think. Anyway, yeah, this was an okay season. Haaland broke the scoring record.
Yeah. I mean, Man City won a treble. That was pretty cool. But I don't think they were necessarily at their best in the Premier League that year up until the final few months. It was one of those, like, they reel off another one of their sort of 10 in a row.
Very stereotypical City title.
Yeah, exactly. And they also only took 1 point from their final 2 games. So, again, it didn't feel like they finished on the best note. Arsenal were actually top of the league this year for 248 days and didn't win.
It's a shame.
It's the longest amount of time ever being top without winning. And there was quite a good top 4 race as well. There was only 4 points between Newcastle and Liverpool in 5th. It was also the first time since 2017-18 that all 3 newly promoted sides had stayed up, which is quite
good
nice.
Fact.
But I don't know. I kind of remember it more for what Man City achieved as a whole, and Arsenal weren't quite as good as they then subsequently became, but they were a little bit more entertaining than they now are. So there's a bit of a juxtaposition there as well. But there is also something quite fun about watching someone just break the Premier League goal-scoring record.
Yeah, and I agree. I think there were a lot of questions about when Haaland joined as well. And I remember watching that first game against West Ham when I think he scored a penalty. And then in the second half, De Bruyne put him through and he scored. And I was like, oh my God.
That was a little too easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like De Bruyne.
We might see that a few times.
This might be a problem. And I think they beat United 6-3.
Yeah,
Haaland and Foden both scored hat-tricks. That was a very exciting era of football, of like having a real young star come to the Prem and smash it. But
first, like, massive superstar arrival in quite a while, I think.
And to deliver, probably over-deliver what people thought he would do. It was still a bit of a weird season. Like, I look back on that now, and I agree Arsenal are really watchable, and maybe this is kind of confirmation bias, but it felt inevitable that they would not go the distance because City just were better and more experienced.
They'd never done it before.
Yeah, it was a bit of a... I think this is a comfortable, watchable season. Would you agree with that? Would you go higher than that?
I think it was watchable as well. I had it 7 out of 11 on my list.
Yeah.
So that feels about right. And yeah, you're right. Although it finished like 5 points between them and Arsenal had shown so many signs of progress, I never really, like, deep within thought Arsenal were capable of doing it. Whereas this year I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Do you know, it feels like it's completely flipped.
Yeah. I think also we're kind of getting into the period now where I can broadly remember what teams played like. Because obviously this is one thing people forget about old seasons too. Like, a Premier League season feels more exciting when you look back on it because you don't remember the bad games. You like a 3-minute montage of the 14-15 season, which I watched the other day. I was like, it's not going to show Palace Burnley at Selhurst Park, which was 0-0. Like, you're not gonna, you don't remember that. You just remember the good things. And if you made a montage of this season, it'd be great. Anyway, but I feel like Arsenal were really watchable this year. They were really exciting to watch. But other than that, like, I don't remember. I think Liverpool weren't great this year either. City were, again, they didn't really feel like they got into gear until the end of it. I don't remember it being especially exciting. I don't remember many games being great. Arsenal were kind of the shining light of that season in terms of excitement, I think, because they were scoring quite a lot of goals and had a young team. But
Chelsea were terrible, which was quite fun.
Yeah.
I think this is the year they finished 12th. Which was quite, it's always quite novel when a Man United, a Chelsea, Liverpool had a couple of years of it in the like mid 2010s, I should say, finishes like 8th or below. That's always quite entertaining. But I agree. I don't think it had enough on it at either end of the table or enough standout performances aside from the Man City players to really be top.
It tailed off a bit. We'll put that in watchable. Shout out Man United that year as well. That was when under Ten Hag they kind of like threatened to be in the title race for a bit, and Rashford was good. 23-24, another City Arsenal title race, a lot closer on paper, I should say. It didn't really feel like that from what I remember when Arsenal lost at home to Villa. That kind of just went then, didn't it, really?
Yeah, they had a terrible December. They lost against Villa, West Ham and Fulham.
Yeah.
And then they had a really good, what would it be, start of 2024. But the kind of damage had been done in many ways. And look, they were close to faultless and they only lost it by 2 points in that stage. So maybe that's a little bit unfair to say the damage had been done because it did go right down to the wire. But again, Man City were just still at their peak. Like, Rodri had a phenomenal year this year. Foden was brilliant that year as well. It just felt sort of kind of like Man City at this stage, it almost felt like Man City would never lose another title again,
Yeah.
which obviously didn't happen the following year, which we'll come into. But yeah, they didn't lose any of their final 22 league games, which is just pretty unthinkable now. The relegation battle in this year wasn't great as well.
No, Luton went down. Luton finished 18th with 26 points.
Yeah, and Everton and Forest had points deductions, but it still didn't really make it that competitive.
This was kind of prime team promoted teams going back down.
Happened back-to-back years.
Yeah.
A record amount of goals were scored this season.
Yeah, 1,246, which is like 150 more than last season.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, a lot more. I think only one other has gone over 1,100, and that's 1,200 something. So.
Yeah, I was quite surprised when I saw that. I don't remember it as being that year,
neither.
but then it just maybe everyone was just consistently delivering in front of goal. Villa finished 4th. That was one of the most notable things from this year as well, I think.
Yeah. Watkins shared the Playmaker Award.
There was some.
He only got, didn't it? Wasn't his expected assists like 5 or something?
Yeah.
He got 15 assists.
I mean, there were some great individual seasons. Like Haaland kind of backed up the year before, despite people saying he was a one-season wonder. And then this was the Cole Palmer year as well, where he was absolutely unbelievable. And Alexander Isak was really starting to turn it on for Newcastle as well. So in terms of like individuals coming to the fore, this was a good year as well.
Where would you rank this?
I had it 5 out of 11. So I had it in sort
Mid-table.
of mid-table, watchable.
Yeah, I can see that. It wasn't. There were some good teams, but I know what you mean. There was one day of that season that was really quite exciting, which was the day that because Liverpool were in this title race they were like in March, they were up there, and then they lost at home to us. That was like our first win under Glasner that really set off on a winning run, and then that was when the title was in Arsenal's hands, and then they lost to Villa, and then it was in City's hands, and City just ran away with the rest of it. One thing that irks me about this season, this is a bit of a tangent. Man City 0, Arsenal 0. That people still talk about that game as like somehow Arsenal doing something wrong by going to the Etihad and drawing. I cannot wrap my head around that as a premise. You go into your title rivals and not losing is a great result. It doesn't matter how it happens. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I agree. They lost it in December.
Yeah.
If they hadn't lost, what did I say, 3 out of 5 games in December, they would have won the league.
If you're relying on going to the Etihad and winning to win the league, you probably have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. It really annoys me when people talk about that. It's like when City went to Arsenal earlier this season, part of the bus. Like, good for them.
Yeah.
Just take the point. Last season, 24-25, the Salah season probably cemented himself as like a top. Well, I mean, how far do I want to go on this? I think he's possibly a top 3 Prem player ever in terms of overall peak and longevity.
He's definitely got the longevity. He's kind of got the trophies. Yeah, no, maybe a top 5 for me. But I totally agree with you. It feels like we're being a bit harsh on Liverpool because we didn't have the 2019-20 season very high, and I actually don't have last season particularly high either. They did win the league by 10 points ahead of Arsenal. Arsenal had injuries, red cards, lack of momentum. They didn't really shine in an attacking sense, even when they did have players available as well. There was there was actually a pretty good Champions League battle.
Yes.
Like Chelsea and Forest. There was only 4 points between them, and Chelsea were 4th and Forest was 7th.
Villa and Newcastle were
were right up there as well. That was entertaining. What was also entertaining was Man United and Spurs being complete laughing stock as well.
17th and 16th were they?
Yeah,
and
15th and
17th.
But
And they competed in the Europa League final in possibly the worst final since the Spurs Liverpool Champions League final.
And like some very good individual campaigns as well. Salah the most goals and assists in a Premier League season. Isak was phenomenal. Everyone was saying Isak was now the best Premier League striker, which probably felt a little bit premature, let's say. But even Brian Mbeumo scoring 20 goals for Brentford that year.
Wissa 19.
Yeah. There were some really good individual seasons. I just don't think it had enough of a narrative at the top. And again, for the second consecutive year, really no relegation battle.
I think last season is a really good example actually of like what makes a season good and what makes a season bad. It's just jeopardy. Like you want jeopardy. That is what you remember. Like the City 17-18 is a good example of how for a football purist such as yourself, you loved that season because the football was really good. But for most people, like there wasn't much on the line. So you don't really remember it. I think like whilst Liverpool great, Salah was amazing, Van Dijk was great, and there was some good individuals you said, and some bits of it was good. Last season there was basically like the season was over by like February.
You either need like a level of football you've never seen before, an achievement you've never seen before, or some just phenomenal narrative throughout the league.
Yeah.
And I don't think last season, aside from Salah being unbelievable,
Yeah.
had enough in any of those three categories, aside from Salah
Yeah.
being unbelievable.
It is a shame that, because I'm going to propose to put this in yawn.
Yawn.
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think?
I mean, to be fair, I had it 10 out of 11, so it's yawny.
It's yawny season. I mean, it does feel harsh on Liverpool because we have put both of their title-winning seasons in yawn. But I don't want to begrudge them, because I said last season they deserved a stress-free title win, because they had, again, like 18, 19, 21, 22. They win that in any other season. But yeah, I agree. It wasn't
a vintage one.
It wasn't great. Although Palace did win the FA Cup, but that's obviously a separate matter. In the league, it was pretty boring for us for the most part. Then we go on to this season. Now, obviously, it's not over yet. But at the time of recording, Arsenal are 7 points clear at the top. City have a game in hand. The relegation battle is neck and neck with Forest, West Ham and Spurs, and even like Leeds are kind of in it as well at the moment. Top 5, top 6 battle is really close now too, but the style of football has it ruined the jeopardy?
I don't think it's ruined it. I think maybe in 5-6 years' time it will look better as a season than it does when you're in it, because I do think there has been a slight reduction in entertainment throughout the league. But I don't think it should take away from the fact that there is so much still riding on the season as we sit here in early March. And actually so many of these campaigns, 24-25, 2019-20, the Leicester season, even when they won the league, they won it so easily. You know, that was a phenomenal achievement. But there is so much that could go down to the wire on this one.
Yes.
And you potentially got, Arsenal winning a first league title in 22 years. Say whatever you like. I personally enjoy it when new teams challenge and get over the line. And I also enjoy it when sides that have made bad decisions for a while are in risk of relegation. And Spurs going down, I wouldn't personally take any enjoyment from it. Personally, I think Forest deserve to go down on the basis of this season.
Facts.
Going through 4 managers.
All my homies hate Forest.
Going through 4 managers, signing really ineffectively in the summer. But the way they're playing right now, if they weren't called Spurs, I would be surprised if Spurs survived.
Oh, mate, they're terrible.
They are really bad.
They're really
They've got
bad.
no fit players available. The mood around the camp is so dreadful. They just look like if they weren't called Spurs, you'd be like, yeah, they're obviously the side that are going to go down. So that's quite fun to keep an eye on as the season progresses as well. I think the real sort of knife in the heart of this campaign is you want the best players in the league to have good years. And this year, no one really has had a great year. Haaland has, but he went off like an absolute rocket. Last few months, he's been very quiet. And then you're looking at the next top scorers being Igor Thiago of Brentford.
Yeah.
Respect to him. Amazing season from him. But then it's João Pedro on 14. And then I think the next top scorer in the league's Ekitike on 11. There's not been Salah, there's not been Isak, there's not been, I don't know, Palmer, Odegaard, Saka, any of that top range that you really want to push the league forward and get people excited to watch a game on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been there for me.
I agree. It's mad to think Haaland's on 22 goals, which obviously is a lot. And if he should hit 30. Well, should he? Possibly. He
I've
always
always
tails
got a
off
theory
bit.
about Haaland, though, that I can only remember about 2 of his goals at the end of the season.
He does love a September stat.
Yeah.
Bruno's obviously having a good year too, but you're right. Like when the best players in the league are defensive,
blow for blow, yeah.
It's like Gabriel, Saliba, like they've been great, but like you want to see players really like take over individually. It's been very system.
No one's saying in 10 years' time. Do you remember that Jurriën Timber year?
Yeah, exactly.
As good as he's been, but
Yeah.
it's just not what you write home about in 10 years' time.
I think it's but you're right also, like there's so much jeopardy this season, not just in terms of the fact that everything's going to the wire, but like who is involved in what is making it. Because if Arsenal don't win the league this year, it's kind of like this feels like the year, and if they don't do it, they have to do it now. Spurs have to stay up. Like it feels like there's not going to be another chance for those teams to kind of turn this around.
This feels like one of the final few years of Pep and Man City.
Yeah, exactly.
Liverpool to go from title winners to potentially not even qualifying for the Champions League. That's pretty nuts. Like Chelsea, this is kind of doom or die for their entire project. If they don't make it to the Champions League this year, again, there's major questions to be asked. Like, whether Eddie Howe potentially leaves Newcastle in the summer. You've got the final few games of Iraola and Glasner and Marco Silva. There's a lot still riding on this season.
Everyone feels incredibly stressed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like...
Except for in Wearside.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it feels like everyone has so much on this season. There's so much to lose for so many teams. Like, even tomorrow, it's obviously Champions League tomorrow at the time of recording. So, PSG, Chelsea... Atletico, Spurs,
Newcastle, Barca.
Yeah, Newcastle, Barca, but Arsenal, Leverkusen, but for a lot of those teams, it feels like, oh my god, it doesn't feel exciting. I don't feel like teams are excited or fans are excited to watch their teams play. They're almost like scared.
Yeah.
Everyone's just scared of something going wrong this season. As I said, I do think a lot of it is the fact that it's been a perfect storm of Arsenal being top of the league and I think people will probably lose their mind if they win it, but then they'll forget about it by this time next year. There'll be another team that everyone has decided they hate. Where did you rank this?
I had it 9 out of 11. Given all that, it's like we were working for the Premier League for that 5 minutes. I do still think there is so much to be excited for, but more so than normal. And look, maybe it's just because I've been working in football for quite a while now, and I just haven't had that many wow moments this Premier League season. There haven't been that many games that I think I'll remember in 10 years' time individually, despite the fact there is still a lot riding on it. So I'm potentially putting it in the yawn watchable sort of crossover border.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put it bottom of watchable, possibly, because
fair.
This could age amazingly this season. It could end up being one of the best ever if it goes down to the wire. And we had 23-24 was in... Did we have that in yawn? Or do we have that in...
I think that should be in yawn, yeah.
We'll put it in yawn. Okay, so... Our list is as things stand.
Oh, no, wait. 23-24, did you say?
Yeah.
That was actually much higher, I think. I think that was watchable.
Okay, we'll put it in watchable. We'll put it near the top of watchable. Okay, so as things stand, in yawn, we have 19-20. Sorry, Liverpool.
Terrible.
You are the exception to that. 2021... and 24-25, again, sorry, Liverpool. Sorry, Salah in particular. Watchable, we have 16-17, 17-18, 22-23, 23-24, 25-26. Thrilling, we have 15-16.
Nice.
And then at the top, we have our two propositions for the best league of the last 10 years. We have 18-19 and we have 21-22. 18-19 was better than 21-22.
I agree.
I think in terms of overall quality, it was better.
I had it at number 1.
It was. I think I'm going more on I'm a bit of a vibesman when it comes to football. The vibes in 21-22 were absolutely immaculate.
They were good. Yeah, everyone was just in a much better mood, as we already covered. I do think 2018-19 had the jeopardy, it had the standard, it had the perfect meshing of both for me.
Yeah. Okay, 18-19 is officially in the best. Should we try and move one up as well from watchable?
Yeah, I thought...
Did you go 23-24?
23-24 I thought probably deserves to be a little bit higher, given the fact there's only 2 points in the title race.
Went to the final day. Again, that title race went to the final day.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It kind of didn't really, but I feel good about that. So the moral of the story, I guess, is this season really any worse than the last 10 years? Does it stand out?
It doesn't stand out as particularly dreadful. I don't think it stands out as one of the best, but I think people are prone to complain a lot about, the past and the current. Everyone always wants what they don't currently have. Set pieces aren't everyone's cup of tea. VAR as well. Some people would love to go back to a pre-VAR era. Don't think that's going to happen. I think VAR is personally a little bit overhated.
It's interesting actually that we didn't touch on the introduction of VAR at all.
No.
In that, whilst it maybe has made a difference overall to a lot of people, there's not a clear, this season was great because there was no VAR. I don't have that in my head.
I couldn't even tell you the season it was introduced, which probably goes to show that I've never been someone that particularly focuses on VAR or refereeing decisions, just because I think there's way more interesting things to remember a season by.
Yeah.
I think pretty much the only refereeing decision we talked about in the entire show was the goal line technology incident with Villa, which was quite memorable.
Yeah. I mean, also that's objectively just been way more successful, so it's quite funny. People just love moaning about refereeing decisions.
I think it's very easy after 90 minutes to focus on refereeing decisions because there's someone to blame, when there's often so many more guilty parties in losing a game than a referee.
Agreed. If this title race goes to the final day, let's say title race goes to the final day and relegation goes to the final day, would you have it any higher?
Potentially, yeah. I'd potentially put it much more in the watchable top end of watchable, and I do think there is a high potential of at least relegation going right down to the wire.
And a good team will go down. Like whoever you think of, Forest, West Ham, and Spurs, like you put them in most of those other seasons, they probably don't go down. I think. Also, yeah, like again, I'm trying to think of like shared characteristics here. 18-19 title race that went down to the final day, which we had as the best. In thrilling, you got Leicester's year, obviously historic. 21-22, 23-24, both title races went down to the final day. It's all about just like prolonging the drama. The quality of football, as you said, in 15-16, in a lot of ways, like wasn't a lot of the good teams were pretty bad.
I remember last year in Sky, people from about March were quite worried about literally viewing figures because there was no title race whatsoever.
Yeah.
There was no relegation whatsoever. And, you know, the Premier League is such a big juggernaut. It's going to continue whatever. And Sky have so many of the rights. It's not too much of a panic, really. But it does go to show that these things they are literally worried about people's attention spans when there's not that much riding on it. Whereas this season, I think there's a lot still on it.
There is so much, including Palace win the Conference League. That's obviously on the tip of everyone's tongue. We're going to take a quick break and then we will do the final segment of the show, which is Question of the Day. Okay, this week's Question of the Week comes from Tash. Can you tell your stories of how you started supporting your teams?
Sunderland. Everyone asks me this quite regularly.
It is an interesting, because you don't sound very Mackham.
Not very Mackham, no. My granddad used to work for the club in the 1980s. So it's a sort of family link. Yeah, this is on my mum's side. My dad wasn't particularly into football, but my granddad on my mum's side and my mum's brother are Sunderland fans. And they live in Yorkshire. So like not that close to Sunderland, but it was the ground I got taken to. There was no other real strong family links with any other club. And yeah, so I went from there. And it was, you know, it's given me a lot of grief over the years, a little bit of joy. And it makes the joy all the sweeter, as you know, as a Palace fan as well.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, that's how I got into it.
Have you ever watched Sunderland win anything? Like a cup?
Playoff final.
Yeah.
Playoff final. 2 playoff finals, but not a big trophy. No.
Unlucky.
Last major trophy in 1973.
Okay.
So
maybe next year.
Maybe next year if we don't come up against Port Vale.
Yeah. Scourges of your FA Cup run. Mine was through my dad. So my dad grew up in Croydon. It's quite funny, like when I say that, people are like, "Ooh," but he like was in a posh bar. Went to Palace growing up. Again, his dad wasn't really into football, so he would go to Palace a lot with his mates and stuff. And then he just dragged me along when I was little. I really wanted to be a Liverpool fan. I made a video about this recently.
I think I saw this.
It really annoys me that people call me like a closet Arsenal fan, because like I've publicly said loads that I loved Liverpool growing up, like, and people just ignore it. Do you know what I mean? I'm giving you hard evidence actually of me. Obviously, like I am a Palace fan through and through, but when I was like 7, I preferred Liverpool to Palace.
Yeah,
but people just.
I think there aren't that many neutral content creators that defend Arsenal that regularly.
No, yeah.
It's a compliment to your neutrality.
Yeah, I'm trying my best out here. What do you think of the notion? I saw Tom Garrett say this on one of the Zach Lab 20 versus 1s. If you don't support your local team, or I guess in your case, you don't have a family connection to a team, you're a glory hunter.
I get called a glory hunter now as a Sunderland fan, which is quite funny.
I've been called it as a Palace fan as well.
It's hilarious though. Like
that's
we're in League One for 4 years.
Yeah, why would you?
Have you seen the Netflix show of us all crying? There's no glory in being a Sunderland fan, but I think it's because I don't go to every game. I've never tried to make out that I'm the biggest Sunderland fan either. I'm just a Sunderland fan that works in football.
Yeah.
People are like, "Where are you this weekend?" And it's like, I do live 4.5 hours away from the stadium.
I have a job.
So it's not the easiest, and I have to work a lot of weekends. But aside from that, I think it is nice to have a family relationship with the club or some sort of link to it. But it's not something that really keeps me up at night who people want to support. Especially because if you're hunting for glory changes every 10 years or so. You know, if you're a Man United fan growing up, it often was because they were very successful. They've had very little glory for a club of their stature in the last 10 years. So, and maybe the same will happen with Man City in the future. Liverpool obviously went, 30 years without winning a league title. So I don't think hunting for glory is a particularly prudent strategy. And if you're going to pick a side on the basis of who's doing well at that particular moment, it'll always come back to bite you. And you need something to relate to on some level, whether it's a certain player or you like a manager or you like the kind of club ethos. So support who you want, man.
I think that it's interesting about like how you would pick a team if you don't have an obvious team to support, because like so much of it's just based on like where you live. Like I can totally understand why in London there are so many Arsenal fans, because I don't know if you'd agree. Like I think in terms of biggest club in London, in terms of just like the fan base size and how dominated by a club the city is, Arsenal are by far the biggest. Would you agree with that?
I think they're definitely the biggest. I don't know whether I'd say by far the biggest. It's them or Chelsea, isn't it? But I think Arsenal have the advantage of always being, at least in my lifetime, at least in the last 15 years in particular, like they're a very cool club.
Exactly.
Whatever the concept of cool is, like Arsenal just kind of have it.
Yeah.
Whereas Chelsea have had so many changes of like Chelsea's philosophy over the last 20 years has been winning, and it doesn't really matter how you get there. They just want to win, which is why now if they don't win the league next year and it goes 10 years without a league title, Chelsea feel a little bit lost as an institution because they've never had anything kind of fall back on.
Yeah.
Whereas Arsenal have always been the kind of style of play initially under Arsene Wenger or taking through academy graduates, and now it's the sort of the kind of talents that you associate with them, whether it's Rice or Saka, these really likeable sort of personalities. But yeah, I could see why so many Londoners do support Arsenal for sure. And also the London rivalries, I think, having only ever lived in London for like 10 years or so, and I actually grew up in Scotland, so my local team was St Johnstone. So I could have been a St Johnstone fan, but because of my family all being involved in English football and me being an England football fan as well, despite being half Scottish, like I was always going to be more of a Premier League fan than a Scottish Premiership fan. So that's how it kind of happened. But yeah, I can see why Arsenal do end up attracting so many people. There is a sort of je ne sais quoi to them.
Good little French as well, because the whole Wenger and
The whole Wenger thing.
That's one thing that's annoyed me a bit about Palace actually, is that like I feel like I think Palace could be really cool because we're like a South.
I think you are quite.
I think we are like on the pitch are quite cool. Like I think that's one thing I've always liked about Palace is I feel like our identity is very strong, but if we had like Arsenal's PR team behind us, I think we could be the coolest team ever. Arsenal just released stuff they're doing like a Places and Faces collab, and I was like, every single big clothing brand basically has done a collab with them.
Yeah.
Also, Brighton have just done one with Percival, which is just
I saw that Verbruggen actually.
Such a shame.
It keeps on coming up on my phone.
Saw it on their website. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I just don't think we'll ever have that level. That's I think in like the modern world, like that is such a good way of attracting fans, and just as I said, by being cool and like
it now helps that Arsenal are now competitive as well.
They've timed it really well.
For years, they were releasing 4th and 5th shirts when they were struggling in the league, and it didn't look so good from a PR perspective. But now there's the perfect mesh of likable players, a winning side, based in London.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go, Tash. That's how we found out supporting our teams. Thanks very much for listening and watching, everyone. Dougie, do you want to plug anything?
Not particularly. I mean, come and check out my YouTube channel as well. It's just Dougie Critchley. Been doing it since about last July. Really enjoying it. Trying to create as much long form and actually a lot of short form content as well. So yeah, come check it out. Thanks very much for having me though, guys. Really enjoyed it.
No, thanks for coming on. That was very enjoyable. It was good to have a real football brain.
Oh.
No offense to Sean, obviously. Going through the Premier League season.
Very generous.
I'll be giving him heat next week about the Fulham game. He's not escaped that. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.